to that. And they are, so part of them are already in Gaza, which we plan to distribute as quickly as possible, currently being offloaded and actually included in our warehouse and being distributed, we hope, as quickly as possible over this weekend, to, again, prioritize referral hospitals. It also includes tents and water tanks. Over to you. But I want to... Okay.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think and maybe Samar has addressed that and others have addressed it. We're talking about a drop of an ocean in the ocean. It's we should talk about a sustained supply. We talk about a year about 15, 20, 40 trucks. Samar is better aware of that as leading logistic cluster. We should talk about hundreds of trucks and hundreds of trucks in a sustained way, and not only to Gaza, but also within Gaza. Within Gaza, we need, whatever you call it, safe passages, humanitarian corridors, etc., to make sure that this goods can come in. We know that many partners are lined up. ICRC has lined up 12 trucks, for example, with essential supplies. There's many bilateral agencies who lined up their supplies in all areas. We need to coordinate that, we need to prioritize that, but most importantly, we need to distribute it as quickly as possible to the shelters, the makeshift shelters, to the bakeries, but specifically also, of course, to the health facilities all over Gaza and to the population wherever they reside in Gaza. We should not only talk about south of Wadi Gaza, also about the remaining population and the remaining IDPs. For your information, only in Shifa Hospital, there's an estimated 40,000 IDPs staying in Shifa Hospital, with 5,000 within the hospital and 30,000 in the compounds. Same at Al-Quds Hospital, you talk about 12,000 IDPs, because people consider hospitals as safe places, Indonesian hospitals, etc. They all have a huge number of IDPs. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Yuri Aprilev, correspondent of RIA Novosti. Yuri.
Yes, thank you, Alessandra. I have two questions. One is for Ravina, and the second is for the representative of WFP and WHO in Jerusalem. So, Ravina, the permanent representative of Palestine in Geneva told us yesterday that he's asking Volker Türk to request a list of the identities of the victims of October 7th from Israel. I will citing him in order to establish a climate of trust in the figures of victims presented publicly. Has this appeal been heard by Volker Türk? Has the list been requested or already reserved? This is the first for Rabina, and the second for WFP and WHO. You are in Jerusalem yourself. How are the Israeli authorities reacting to your comments? Did they understand what you are talking about and the problem you are talking? Thank you.
Thanks for that. The High Commissioner is in touch with the Israeli authorities, with the Palestinian Permanent Mission here as well, in fact. He's had meetings with them. He also met with some of the families of those who have been held by Hamas when they visited Geneva. So he's very much engaged on this issue. And really our hearts go out to the families of those who must be just feeling so terrified, unclear what the fate of their loved ones is, the people who are still being held in Gaza. And we have called for their unconditional, immediate release. On bilateral exchanges between the High Commissioner and the authorities, those will remain bilateral. We will share with you anything public we're able to share.
Thank you. I don't know, Samir or Richard, who wants to start? Richard?
Okay, I will start. I think when I listened to part of the former press conference with Lynn Hastings, the Humanitarian Coordinator, I think she partly addressed this already. I think there's, within the one UN, there's definitely an ongoing dialogue also with Israeli authorities, where we are also part of. Secondly, I mean, like our CITES reps, the WHO CITES reps, all the information is public. We share that. So So everyone is aware of what we actually produce, what we develop, and what we are doing. Over to you.
Tamer?
Yeah, I think it's addressed by Rick very well, and that's our position. What I can say is that the needs are much higher than what's going in, and this is the reality on the ground. 2%, this is what I was referring to. 2%, the 9 trucks that WFP entered represent 2% of what is needed actually, or what was going into Gaza prior to the crisis. If you want to meet the demands at the moment and the humanitarian needs on the ground, we need around 40 trucks a day of food to be able to reach 1 million people. If you want to reach the whole population in Gaza, we need 100 trucks of food alone every day. And that is the situation we are in, where we're ready, but we need to make sure that that's scaled up. Continuous access into Gaza is one thing. And the second thing, on the ground, we need to make sure that we are able to operate and reach the people wherever they are to be able to support their needs.
Thank you very much. Jamil Shade, our Brazilian correspondent of UOL.
Yes, my question is to WHO. It is also on the numbers of the 7,000 that you put actually in your report as well on deaths. I know you mentioned the Ministry of Health, but could you tell us for how long have you relied on the Ministry of Health in Gaza? How comfortable are you using those numbers? And what is the basically possibility that these numbers could be wrong?
Richard?
Yeah, I think this is partly, I think, addressed by Lynn Hastings already, I think, in the former session. So as WHO, in every conflict, in any outbreak, in any emergency, yeah, this also, for example, was very much happening with COVID-19. You might have forgotten that. We rely on the data of the relevant health authorities. So Lynn Hastings made it clear, the Ministry of Health in Gaza, confirmed by the Ministry of Health in Ramallah. Yeah, so I want to make that clear. Now, yesterday, WHO received a list of the casualties from the Ministry of Health, detailing names of all the people, registration number, who have been killed from the 7th of October. So I'm talking about a list from between 7th to 26th of October. That is 6,747 people, and it doesn't include 281 unidentified persons. I also want to stress, we also get these estimates that there are still 1,000 plus people under the rubble, which have not been identified yet. And I must say, I also find this a little bit of a cynical question, which is coming back and back. So if it would be 1,000 more or 1,000 less, I mean, would the discussion change? And my last point I want to say, the Ministry of Health in Palestine, when we deal, for example, we've been dealing with them for decades, and you look at other figures, if it is immunization and other figures, they have a pretty good vital statistics, death, birth, but also for areas like immunization. And yes, we have been, of course, in some of those areas in the past, we do also our assessment and surveys, and I can say they were pretty good. Over to you.
Thank you very much for these wise words. Moussa Assi, Al-Mayedine.
Merci, Alessandra. J'ai deux questions, en fait, une pour Ravina et une pour vous. Je ne sais pas pour vous si je les pose maintenant ou bien à la fin, concernant ce qui se passait au Conseil de droits de l'homme. Je commence avec Ravina. Ravina, the Palestinian representative informed us yesterday that more than 1,000 Palestinian workers working in Israel were arrested by Israeli forces after October 7. Can you confirm this? And if you have some information about their situation? Alexandre pose ma question maintenant ou bien après?
Oui, allez-y, puisque c'est relatif à
Oui,
notre
alors
sujet.
lundi passé, il y a eu un incident au Conseil de droits de l'homme. La sécurité, ou bien un membre de la sécurité, a voulu sortir un parlementaire européen de la salle parce qu'il portait une châle avec un petit drapeau palestinien. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous expliquer ce qui s'est passé et pourquoi est-ce que c'est interdit de porter ce genre de choses dans la salle de droits de l'homme? Et donc, il s'est passé quoi aussi avec le membre de la sécurité qui a voulu sortir ce parlementaire? Merci.
Merci, Ravina. You want to start?
Yeah, thanks for that, Musa. Yes, we do have reports of Palestinian workers being arrested, detained in Israel. I'm trying to find if we have figures on that, but I'll have to come back to you. We may have them, but I don't have them in front of me right now, so I will come back to you on that. But yes, we do have reports of Palestinian workers being detained in Israel.
Moussa, merci pour votre question sur ce qui s'est passé dans la salle 20. J'ai effectivement vérifié avec nos collègues. En fait, ce n'est pas exactement comme vous avez décrit. Ce que je peux vous confirmer, c'est qu'avant tout, la personne en question avait un badge ONG. Il n'était pas un délégué d'un gouvernement, d'une autorité. Il était accrédité comme représentant d'une ONG. Ça, c'est juste pour préciser un premier détail. Deuxièmement, la sécurité n'est pas intervenue pendant la réunion et n'a pas sorti la personne de la salle, disons, manu militari, mais il s'est agi de, en fait, tout simplement une question qui a été posée à la personne en question, où l'agent de sécurité a juste demandé est-ce qu'on peut sortir en seconde. La personne en question est sortie sans problème. Ils ont eu une discussion de 1 minute dans laquelle la personne de la sécurité, le collègue de la sécurité a demandé à cette représentante d'ONG quel était l'habillement qu'il avait. Il a vu de quoi il s'agissait. Il lui a dit merci beaucoup. Le monsieur est rentré dans la salle et l'agent de sécurité a déféré aux organisateurs de la réunion des éventuelles discussions. Voilà, ça c'est ce que j'ai pu avoir comme information. Oui, pardon, vas-y.
No, so Musa, I still don't have the figures, but I do have information. I mean, there has been, our colleagues have documented an increase in arbitrary arrests of Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and of Arab Israelis in Israel, including Palestinian activists and Palestinian workers that were previously working in Israel. We have reports of ill treatment, of cancellation of work permits, and the lack of any due process. This, of course, is unacceptable.
Merci Ravina pour ces précisions. Ravikant, Washington Trade Daily.
Yeah, my question is to Ravina. Ravina, is the situation being so grave? Is it right to say this is a genocide that is happening before our eyes?
This question was also asked by Mohammed this morning.
No, sure. Thanks for the question. I know that there are accusations flying of all sorts of legal qualifications of what is going on right now in Gaza. As I said quite clearly in our briefing note, we are concerned that war crimes are being committed. We're concerned about the collective punishment of Gazans in response to the atrocious attacks by Hamas, which also amounted to war crimes. Our analysis at this point, it can't go further than that on the qualification of other crimes. They really need to be done by a court of law through an independent process. And we understand that the ICC is also engaged in the matter.
Thank you very much. Gabriel, I've seen you, but I've got still people queuing on the platform, sorry. So I'll go to John Zarocostas, France 24 and The Lancet.
Yes, good morning. Firstly, my question to Richard, and I have a question for Ravina. Richard, can you bring us up to speed, please? What's the situation with reference to referrals of urgent patients, life-threatening situations where they need to go to specialized treatment? Rick Brennan a few days ago told us that was not possible to get referrals anymore out of Gaza or the West Bank to other places. Is that still the situation? And what are the Israeli authorities telling you with reference to that? Is there some improvement of opening channels? And I have a question for Ravina afterwards.
Yeah, John, go ahead. Ask Ravina also so that afterwards we can go to the answers.
Ravina, with reference to my colleague's questions earlier, the human rights monitors has the office got in the OPT in West Bank and also in Gaza? Because Ms. Hastings told us only your head of mission has a visa to go in and out from Amman into the OPT. So how many nationals do you have working for your office? In other words, you're in a position to document any alleged violations by all sides.
Thank you, John. Let's start with Richard.
Yeah, thanks very much. Maybe I should have mentioned that, etc. So based on the visits from our team also to the hospitals, distributing the supplies, and of course the coordination with the hospital, the medical specialists, medical directors at hospitals, as in the Ministry of Health. So only in Shifa, we already were getting this report that approximately over 100 critical patients urgently need to be evacuated. Now, if you then look at the whole of Gaza, I would say probably talk at least 200, probably plus. It's difficult to make those assessments because it's very difficult for the people to move and get this information. The second question, but I would say 200 plus. The second point is, are we allowed to do that? I think we've raised this already. There's very few supplies coming in. There's no people yet going out, including no critical injured or very sick patients. So this is not happening. What is happening, that with the government of Egypt, the WHO, we very much involved our regional office, our country office in Egypt. So the Egyptian government is ready to take up those critical, urgently and critical patients in their hospitals close to Rafah, but also in many other locations. Over to you.
Ravina?
Thanks, John. Yes, following what Lynn Hastings said, we do have staff. We have 10 national staff in Gaza. You asked about how much they're able to monitor the situation. It's difficult. I just described their circumstances, the conditions in which they're living. They are being forced to flee from one location to another, trying to take some time to mourn the loss of loved ones, but not really having that luxury in these circumstances. So we have 10 of them, 10 of our national staff in Gaza. They're trying to continue their work given the circumstances. We also have 25 staff in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and 15 international staff. Most of them are based in Amman. Lynn Hastings already mentioned to you the visa issues that we've had.
Thank you. Imogen Fox, BBC.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused about this fuel. Is any fuel coming in? WHO, I know, says you need it desperately. Can you give the clearer picture of what the situation is?
Maybe I'll give the floor to Richard and then to Samir on this. Richard?
I think Samir is a better place to actually address this question. It was also addressed partly by Lynn Hastings already. Samir, over to you.
Thanks. I think from the trucks that went in, 74 trucks went in so far as of this morning through Rafah border. None of them has fuel. So that's the information that I have. The amounts that were in the UNRWA depot, I think we had to work, all of us as a humanitarian country team, to see how we can prioritize the needs. Rick talked about the hospitals. For us, we worked on how much we can source to the bakeries that are contracted with us. UNICEF, we're talking about the water desalination plants. So it's very, very scarce. And that's why we were saying that from a food system perspective, we are expecting it to completely collapse if fuel does not go in. And that includes the bakeries, the mills, the wholesalers. Whoever had some stocks of food is not able actually to source it to the shops, simply because there is not sufficient fuel for the trucks to operate in Gaza. And the risk that we're looking at, even if we have more trucks coming in from the Rafah crossing, we don't have enough fuel inside Gaza that allows us to actually do the transshipment and move the food from Rafah crossing into the UN warehouses.
Thank you very much. Let me go back to Gabriela, to the room, to Gabriela. Gabriela is our Mexican journalist from Proceso.
Thank you very much. Ravina, I heard reports that 50 hostages died from Israeli bombings. Do you have information about this? 2 Mexicans are among the hostages. That's the reason I'm asking. And then I read that Mr. Putin received members of Hamas to promote a 2-state solution. Do you think that with this spirit of peace, Mr. Putin will put a stop to the invasion in Ukraine or seek a peaceful agreement there? Thank you very much.
On the reports that you refer to, no, we don't have we don't have information. We don't have the ability to verify those at this point. And on attempts at peace, as we have said, we call on all states with influence to use that influence to push for a de-escalation, to push for an end to the violence, an end to the hostilities. The Secretary General has been very clear on the political solution to this conflict. There can be no solution through war. It only leads to more death and destruction. So we call on all states with influence in the matter to exercise their influence, not to encourage an escalation, but rather to seek a de-escalation of the situation. As far as Ukraine is concerned, we're receiving daily reports of potential violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law. And in fact, we might have a report that we'll be putting out on Tuesday here.
Thank you very much, and thanks for this information. I don't see other questions. Oh, yes, Gabriela, you have a follow-up?
I have a question on another subject for Ravina, if it's
Yeah,
possible.
Ravina is going to brief you on something else. So let me close the issue, the briefing on the situation in the Middle East. I'd like to thank very, very much Samira Abdel-Jaber, the WFP Country Director for Palestine, and Dr. Richard Pieper-Korn, WHO representative in OPTs, who both brief you from Jerusalem. And of course, Tariq and also Ishita, if they can follow up with the notes, that would be much appreciated. Thanks again, and good luck with your important work, and stay safe. And I'll go now back to Ravina. Ravina, you had another point, and it was about the Afghan refugees, and maybe afterwards, Gabriela, you'll be able to ask your question. So let's go to Ravina with this other item.
Right. We are extremely alarmed by Pakistan's announcement that it plans to deport, quote unquote, undocumented foreign nationals remaining in the country after the 1st of November, a measure that will disproportionately impact more than 1.4 million undocumented Afghans who remain in Pakistan. There are more than 2 million undocumented Afghans living in Pakistan, at least 600,000 of whom left Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover in August 2021. We believe many of those facing deportation will be at grave risk of human rights violations if returned to Afghanistan, including arbitrary arrest and detention, torture, cruel, and other inhuman treatment. Those at particular risk are the following: civil society activists, journalists, human rights defenders, former government officials and security forces members, and of course, women and girls as a whole. Women and girls, as a result of the abhorrent policies currently in place in Afghanistan, are banned from secondary and tertiary education, working in many sectors and other aspects of daily and public life. Already, the UN Refugee Agency and IOM have documented a sharp increase in returns to Afghanistan since the deadline was announced on the 3rd of October. A recent flash report by UNHCR and IOM placed the number of Afghans who've left Pakistan in this month until 15th October to 59,780 individuals. 78% of those returning cited fear of arrest as the reason for leaving Pakistan. As the 1st of November deadline approaches, we urge the Pakistani authorities to suspend forcible returns of Afghan nationals before it is too late to avoid a human rights catastrophe. We call on them to continue providing protection to those in need and to ensure that any future returns are safe, dignified and voluntary, and fully consistent with international law. Deportations without individualized determination of personal circumstances, including mass deportations, would amount to refoulement in violation of international human rights law, in particular the Convention Against Torture, to which Pakistan is a party, and of international refugee law. As winter approaches, any mass deportations are bound to deepen the dire humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan as it grapples with the devastating impact of a series of earthquakes that struck Herat province this month, leaving at least 1,400 people dead and 1,800 injured, as per official figures. According to OCHA, close to 30 million people are currently in need of relief assistance in Afghanistan, out of a population of 43 million. We remind the de facto authorities of the international human rights obligations that continue to bind Afghanistan as a state and their obligation to protect and promote and fulfill human rights.
Thank you very much, Ravina. Any question, Ravina, on this matter in the room? I don't see any. Lisa Schlein on the platform.
Good morning. Oh God, this is really depressing morning. Ravina, is there anybody monitoring the deportation, the forced deportation of Afghans from Pakistan in Afghanistan itself? I mean, do you have people on the ground there? And I'm wondering what your major concerns are when they return. Do you know whether they are being arrested, whether they are being harassed in any way, tortured, or is it mainly the awful conditions that reign in the country itself, the ongoing violations, the discrimination against people, particularly what's happening to women and so forth, that is concern for you, that somehow or other sending them back is, I don't know how to put it, but I mean, it's just in this a country that has such terrible conditions that they can't possibly have any sort of a viable, meaningful life there. Thank you.
Ravina, maybe we have also Matthew Saltmarsh from UNHCR in case he wants to add something to that. Ravina.
Yes, I will defer to UNHCR colleagues on some of this as well. But Lisa, in fact, you've answered the question very well yourself. We are very worried that those who are deported face a whole host of human rights violations, torture, arbitrary detention, severe discrimination, lack of access to basic economic, social needs. In particular, women, who of course are being the attempt is to completely erase them from any public presence in society, from the workplace, from schools, from even public parks. So we are worried that deportations will be cruel, and they are a clear violation of both international human rights law and international refugee law.
Matt?
Yeah, maybe I can just add a quick word. We put out a statement with the IOM on the 7th of October on this issue, so I can refer you to that. But in addition to that, Lisa, of course, we've appealed to Pakistan to continue its protection of all vulnerable Afghans who have sought safety in the country and could be at imminent risk if forced to return. Afghanistan, as we just heard, is going through a severe humanitarian crisis with several human rights challenges, particularly for women and girls, and that's not to mention the series of natural disasters that we've recently seen. Any deportations would have serious implications for all who have been forced to leave the country, and they may face serious protection risks upon their return. Of course, we appreciate the generous hospitality of countries in the region towards Afghan nationals for over 4 decades, despite the challenges, and we repeat the call for all returns to be voluntary, safe, and dignified without any pressure to ensure protection for those seeking safety.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you very much. Lisa has a follow-up.
Yeah, and now both of you, I mean, your organizations clearly are in conversation with the Pakistani authorities about this situation. What does the government say to you? How does it justify the deportation of all of these people? I mean, as you say, they have been generous for a long time. It's a big burden and so forth, but nonetheless, there are all of these risks. So yeah, how do they justify the deportation of these people? And then would you, Matt, be so kind as to resend your press release of October 7th? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Matt, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you. I can certainly resend the press release. Lisa, I don't have any details of the conversations so far and any possible positioning by the Pakistani authorities. Let me see if I can get you a little bit more detail later in the day. But for now, all I have is what we've given there. But I'll send any notes through to you now.
You want to add something, right?
Lisa, yes, of course, we have raised our concerns with the authorities. And in fact, you had asked earlier if we're present in Afghanistan. Yes, we are. We have a human rights section in the UN presence in Afghanistan, in UNAMA, and they are continuing to monitor the human rights situation there. And it is on the basis of their monitoring that we are raising these concerns about the use of torture, arbitrary detention, and the severely discriminatory policies that people who are returned to Afghanistan will face.
Thank you very much. And before I let Ravina go, Gabriela, you had another question, right?
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to ask all that questions, but for you, Ravina, and perhaps for Alexandra on Venezuela, the Secretary General asked the Maduro government to respect Barbados agreements so that free and transparent elections are held in 2024. Maria Corina Machado, one of the strongest opposition candidates, has been the target of attacks by the Maduro government. It is not clear if she will be able to run because apparently she has been disqualified. So are you worried that something similar to what happened in Nicaragua with the opposition will happen with the opposition in Venezuela? Something like that? Are you worried that free elections are not being held? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. What I can tell you is that the Secretary General is closely following the developments in Venezuela. He has been calling on the authorities to guarantee full adherence and respect for the political and electoral rights of all citizens. And he reiterates his call to implement in good faith the partial agreement on the promotion of political rights and electoral guarantees for all that was signed in Barbados just a few days ago on 17th of October, and on which he also made a statement. I don't know if you want to add something on that, Ravina?
I mean, of course, the High Commissioner would very much echo the Secretary General's statement. We are aware of the reports that you're referring to, and we have received allegations of some intimidation, censorship, and other worrying concerns that have been raised. Our presence in Caracas continues to work on its protection and technical cooperation activities on the ground, and it has been meeting with different actors in this regard.
And I guess this is also the same subject, Maria Alejandra.
Yes, thank you, Alessandra. Indeed, it is. It's a related issue. I would like to see if there's any possibility of having some context on what's going on, and second, if this is related with the statement that was given by the Secretary General, the announcement he made a few weeks ago with regards to the creation of a fund to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. Are these two issues related in any way? Thank you.
I'm looking at Ravina. Ravina is looking at me. I'm not sure we understand what you mean with related. But obviously, what happened at that point it also concerned Venezuela, so it is related. And now it's important, as the Secretary General said, that these commitments are implemented. Ravina, would you like to add something?
No, not really, Alessandra. Yeah, no, just again reiterating what Alessandra said. Just also, I would actually refer you, the High Commissioner visited Venezuela in January, where he met with President Maduro, civil society actors, really a wide range of actors across Venezuelan society. He heard a lot of the concerns we have. We are, of course, present on the ground, so we are hearing a lot of reports of what's going on. I would also like to refer you to his statement, which in fact was very comprehensive, and it raised concerns along the lines of what's occurring now.
I see Maria Alejandra as her hand up. Maybe she wants to clarify.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Alessandra. What I meant was that the fund to alleviate the humanitarian crisis was signed in another partial agreement in Mexico, and it had been held for some time. Its implementation, its implementation had been held for some time, and then the agreement in Barbados kicked off the possibility of creating this fund. This is my understanding. So I just wanted to know if the fact that the Venezuelan government is not adhering to that agreement signed in Barbados could have any influence in the setting up of this fund. That was my question. Sorry for.
Okay, I understand better. Look, I can try and get you some more information. I know that when these developments happened, the Secretary General commended the efforts of the regional and international partners and encouraged the implementation in good faith of these agreements. The scope being to lead to inclusive, transparent, and credible elections next year, as he said, and also to address human rights concern. But on the consequences of this on the fund, I don't have a specific answer. We'll see if we can get you more, or maybe there will be more in the next days. So I think we can now free Ravina. Thank you very much for all the various briefings. And I'm sure the notes are already out there, or will be very soon, very, very soon. And let me turn to my left. Sophie, we have the pleasure to have you. It's not often that you come and visit us, but you have an announcement on CITES Standing Committee meeting upcoming. Please.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, after speaking about human and humanitarian disaster, speak a little bit about the biodiversity disaster, which is also part of the planetary crisis on climate change, loss of biodiversity and pollution. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora is gathering in Geneva the week after next, from the 6th to 10th of November. It will be the first time that a convention meeting is held since we had a big meeting in Panama in November of last year. This meeting is important, not only because of a lot of issues being on the agenda, but also because a lot of parties and organizations are going to come. We're expecting over 600 participants from 90 countries or parties to the convention, and over 100 organizations, which is a record number for a convention, for a meeting of the Standing Committee, which only has actually 20 members. So all the others are coming to provide information and assist the committee itself. And we have never had this many parties to a Standing Committee meeting before. And it's probably linked to the fact that some of the agenda items are quite maybe I wouldn't say controversial, but quite important, in that the committee will discuss compliance matters with relating to over 25 parties. For instance, with relating to Bangladesh with respect to illegal trade in live birds, Cameroon with respect to the management and trade of African tech, China with regard to trade in live Asian elephants for commercial purposes, which is not allowed under the convention. European Union with respect to the way they implement the provisions of the Convention on Trade in Captive Bred Specimens, which are included in the most strict appendix of the Convention, Appendix 1, where you're normally not supposed to trade for commercial purposes, except if they're captive bred, but under certain conditions that we are arguing the European Union are not following. There will also be discussions of compliance cases in Guinea, Nigeria, Lao People's Democratic Republic, and Democratic Republic of the Congo. With respect to Guinea, the Secretariat recently traveled to the country and discovered a massive traffic of rosewood from Guinea to China in violation of the convention. So this will be brought to the attention of the committee. The committee will also be discussing illegal trade in big cats, in particular tigers, illegal totoaba fishing in the Mexican Gulf, which is threatening the survival of the vaquita species in that area, which is really on the brink of extinction. We know that there are only 10 left of this little porpoise in the Mexican Gulf. It's stable, but it's only 10, which is not a significant population to make sure that it survives. There is also a massive issue of trade from West African rosewood. Guinea is one of the countries, but all the range states in West Africa of this species, there are 16 of them, face difficulties in managing this and controlling this trade and ensuring that it happens at a sustainable level. As usual, the committee will discuss elephants, but will also this time discuss the potential role of CITES in preventing zoonotic disease spillover, which of course we know had caused the COVID pandemic, and we're trying to see if there's something that the convention can do to contribute to preventing a new occurrence of this. And finally, there are a number of broader issues relating to how to engage indigenous peoples, local communities, women and youth better in our work of the convention, and how the convention is contributing to the implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that was adopted in 2022 in Montreal, December 2022. Mike has distributed a press release that we just issued this morning in the 3 languages. Media representatives are welcome to come to the event as long as they make themselves known in advance, so we can check their credentials and have them registered. We also have some guidelines in terms of how you participate in the meeting with filming, etc. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you very much for this briefing. Let me see if there's any question. Gabriela?
Yes, thank you very much. Is the committee are going to review whether the government of Mexico has made any progress regarding the protection of the vaquita marina that is in danger of extinction? Yeah, thanks.
So this has been on the agenda for the committee for some years, and at the last meeting of the committee in November of 2022, Mexico was requested to produce an action plan with targets and milestones, etc., and that the Secretariat would have to agree was sufficient to address the issues. And this happened I think in April of this year. And so this meeting will then further address how Mexico has implemented this action plan and whether the actions taken are sufficient to combat this illegal trade in totoaba in order to save the vaquita. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. A question from Michel Langrand, Geneva Solutions.
Yes, thank you, Alessandra. I was wondering what will be sort of, once these cases are discussed during the meeting, what will follow, what type of decisions should we expect, and what are the implications for the countries that are found to be not in compliance with the agreements? Thank you.
Thank you. A very good question that I had thought of whether I should address right away. It really depends on the specific case, the specific issues. The recommendations that have been proposed by the Secretariat will be discussed by the Standing Committee, and they will agree. In certain cases, the Secretariat has proposed that the country can no longer participate in trade in species, in the 40,000 species listed on the convention. This is the case, for instance, for Lao PDR, because Lao PDR has not been sufficiently responding to recommendations that have been made over the past couple of years. In other situations, it remains to be seen what the outcome will be, but most of the time, the Standing Committee will come with quite specific recommendations as to what the party must do in order to address its compliance matters. Quite, in the case of the European Union, for instance, there's a question of whether European Union must register the facilities that are producing captive bred specimens of Appendix 1 species, and whether they must be registered with the Secretariat or not. And this is a decision that the committee must make, because normally that's what is recommended, that all these facilities are registered with the Secretariat, but we don't know yet whether the committee will accept that recommendation. There are also recommendations with respect to both Lao and PDR in China, that they should stop the trade in live Asian elephants for commercial purposes. So these are the types of conclusions that the Standing Committee may agree on. Thank you.
Michelle, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you for your answer. I'm just wondering if there's somewhere where we can find these recommendations from the Secretariat, just more information about what's going to be discussed in more detail. Thank you.
So all the documents are available on our website. There are about 100 documents, and all these discussions on compliance matters are at item 33. So you'll find the detailed analysis of the Secretariat and the recommendations under the documents that are included under item 33. Another perhaps easier way for you to get more information is to look at information document number 8. So you go on CITES.org and information documents, and information document number 8 summarizes all the agenda items and spells out all the recommendations that the Secretariat has made for the consideration of the Standing Committee. So that's probably the easiest way to get this information about the matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Is there any other question for CITES? I don't see any. Thank you very much for announcing us this important meeting. I know the news are very difficult, very terrible at the moment, but wildlife is very important too. So yes, thank you very much for briefing us on this. I have another briefing to give for you on behalf of FAO. Key was not available, but she asked me to inform you that FAO is organizing a media breakfast on the 2nd of November, next Thursday at 9 a.m. For the upcoming launch of the State of Food and Agriculture 2023. The report is under embargo and will be released on the 6th November at 9 a.m. However, please consider that there will not be press conferences in Rome, although the report will be launched there on the 6th of November, but it will be launched at an event that will be open to all stakeholders. But the press are really invited to come to this media breakfast, for which we will have the pleasure to have you briefed by the FAO Chief Economist Massimo Torero. He will be there to answer your questions under embargo, of course, as the report is until the 6th. But as I said, this will be basically the only occasion where the FAO main author of the report will be able to share the findings of the report with the journalists, and there are also opportunities for one-to-one interviews afterwards. Just a word on the report that will be about the true cost of food, and will touch on the hidden costs that are not reflected in the market prices, which are associated with a range of impacts, including environmental damage, undernutrition and related health consequences, and underdevelopment and derivative social impacts. I understand from Key that I will give you the information about the report in advance, so that you can actually ask informed questions to Mr. Torero when he comes to Geneva. We're really happy because he is coming just for that, to brief you on this occasion. I also have a couple of press conferences to announce you. By the way, sorry, I forgot to say, Key has sent you an invitation to the media breakfast so that you will find it in your mailbox. ITU is holding a press conference on Thursday, 2nd of November. That's at 10:30, so just after the FAO media breakfast. The subject is the World Radio Communication Conference 2023, and the speaker will be Joanne Wilson, Deputy to the Director of the ITU Radio Communication Bureau. Also on the 2nd of November, lots of things on that day at noon. WMO will hold a press conference together with WHO, so WMO and WHO, and that will be on the State of Climate Services for Health report. The speakers will be Professor Petteri Talas, as you know, WMO Secretary General, together with Dr. Maria Neira, the Director of Department of Environment, Climate Change and Health at WHO, and Dr. Joy Schumacher-Guimont, Joint WMO-WHO Office on Climate and Health. And then my last point is about the committees. The Committee on the Elimination of Discriminations Against Women will close this afternoon at 5 p.m. Its 86th session. The concluding observation on Nicaragua, whose report has been reviewed in the absence of delegation, as you know. There was just a permanent representative who made an opening statement before leaving the room. So that particular concluding observation will be issued only in February 2024 at the next session of the committee. The Human Rights Committee will have next Wednesday morning, 1st of November, a public meeting to hear the presentation of the progress reports on the follow-up to concluding observation and follow-up to views. And I think you have a list of countries, I won't repeat it. And then finally, the Committee Against Torture will open next Monday morning at 10 a.m. its 78th session, which will last until 24th of November at Palais Wilson. The countries to be reviewed under these sessions are Burundi, Costa Rica, Kiribati, Denmark, Egypt, and Slovenia. And this is all I have for you today. Let me see. Christian has a question. Go ahead, Christian, please.
Thank you, Alessandra. Could you share the contact details for Sophie? For years, it has been next to impossible to report on CITES because it's unclear who is the spokesperson or who is available. So if Sophie is available, that would be great to have her contact details.
Yes, sure. Okay, so Sophie is the Chief Governing Bodies Unit at CITES. So I guess she is also informed about this particular meeting. She was accompanied by one of our colleagues, and we will try to get the contacts of both to you as soon as the briefing is over. Thank you, Christian. Yes, Gabriela.
Thank you. Do you know the reason why the report on Nicaragua will be issued in February? After the ambassador was really rude with the CEDAW, with the committee members. Yeah, if you can.
Unfortunately, I think you should ask these questions to our colleagues of the council. I'm afraid I won't have. Yeah, I mean, I would go to them and ask the answer for you. So I think it's easier if you just contact our colleagues at the council. In fact, no, not at the council. In fact, at the OHCHR, there is, as you know, a colleague who is in charge of the committees of the treaty bodies. Any other question for me? No? So thank you very much. Have a very nice weekend, and I'll see you on next Tuesday. Thank you.
Recording stopped.